Hello everybody. Each year, Galway Public Libraries celebrates a literary figure or historical event in its county and citywide Galway's Great Read. This year, the Great Read 2020, entitled Eilish Dillon, Language, Landscape and Legacy, celebrates in this her centenary year one of Galway's most prolific and extraordinarily versatile writers, Eilish Dillon. She published some 50 titles between 1948 and 1992, writing for both children and adults. Her themes are wide-ranging, from island life on the Atlantic coast to her knowledge and love of language and folk tradition. Some of the events in our 2020 virtual programme, which ran from late September to December this year, included our online book club, which invited participants into the descriptive imagination of Dillon's work, our various seminars, a magical tour for children, and the two new commissions which highlights her love of art and music, a visual art piece to celebrate her life and work, and a music composition in response to one of her best known and highly regarded translated works, Cuimhnú Artha Leary. Today, we are delighted to be in receipt of our newly commissioned art piece, Eilish Dillon, Cuimhní Clanna, Family Memories. As part of Galway's Great Read 2020, Galway Public Libraries commissioned visual artist Ruth O'Donnell to create a new, unique artwork to commemorate and celebrate the life and work of Eilish Dillon. My thanks to Dr. Emer O'Connor, Gina O'Kelly and Sharon O'Grady, who formed our independent art commission selection panel. Ruth is a Galwegian, born and bred and educated in Galway from primary through to third level. She attended art college through French at the Institut Saint-Luc, Brussels from 1986 to 1990. She graduated en arts plastique with distinction in 1990. That is where she developed her love of printmaking. Her work has included landscape, in particular in the island of Inisheer, where she was artist in residence in Ars Éine in 2005 and 2007, but mainly makes still life imagery. The still life pieces reference art history, literary resources, museum pieces, as well as personal experience. Recent solo exhibitions include A Delicate Blue in 2020, which opened briefly at the Dower House, Emoch Court in County Laois, and Perfectly Ordinary 2019 at Graphic Studios Dublin and Hamilton Gallery in Sligo. Her work has recently been shown in Galway in Impressions 2019 and in Kenny's Gallery. Eilish Dillon's lineage is steeped in history, literature and art. Members of Eilish's family, namely her son Cormac O'Cullinan, daughter Eileen Niculinan and granddaughter Leanne, were invited by Ruth to share their memories and perspectives on Eilish and her work. Collaboration with Dillon's family was a central aspect of this work, exploring family memories to the canon of her Irish literature and the prominent role she played in Irish culture, which informed and inspired the creation of this commissioned piece. I would now like to call on Bernie Kelly, Acting City and County Librarian, to say a few words. Thank you.
Thanks, Josephine. Galway's Great Read is an integral part of the library events calendar. This year it was more difficult due to COVID-19, but the staff have risen to the challenge. It was a multifaceted project this year, incorporating an online book club, which went national and was extremely successful. One Author, Five Islands educational piece, which brought our young population into contact with Eilish Dillon's books again. Were various seminars which highlighted her historical and crime writing. And today we receive a beautiful piece of art celebrating her life and work. It's a wonderful achievement for all concerned. I would like to say a special word of appreciation to the County Creative Ireland team and its coordinator Sharon O'Grady, who have provided the funding for this very worthwhile project. I'm delighted to meet Ruth O'Donnell and her piece of work which she has created for the Eilish Dillon project, and I'm delighted that that this piece will hang in our newly refurbished local history section in Library headquarters, and ultimately which will become part of Galway County Council's art collection.
Thank you very much, Bernie, for your very kind words. And now to the moment we're all waiting for. I would like to invite Charlene and Ruth to unveil this beautiful artwork and ask Ruth to say a few words about the process and about the piece itself.
I approached this commission by thinking about Laois Dillon as I remember her, and by consulting with Elaine Ní Chulnáin, Cormac Cullinan and Leanne Ní Chulnáin, who are her children and granddaughter. And I reread 5 or 6 of her books, which I have in my house. And I started to look for references which are both literal and allegorical. And when looking for those, I was talking about things that I chatted to Cormac and Elaine about, and also objects which I had either in notebooks or actually in my house. And I divided the idea up into 5 sections. And the top section, which you'll see here, is about the weight of history. And this was a big aspect of Laois Dillon's life. So in the top section there, I have in the top corner a vessel from the National Museum, and it's a Cordon d'Urn. And that's a reference to Count Plunkett, who was her grandfather and who was the director of the National Museum between 1907 and 1916. The second square is a piece of seaweed, which is a reference to Professor Tom Dillon, who was Professor of Chemistry here in Galway and who had a specific interest in seaweed and the idea of developing industries based on it in the west of Ireland. The third section is a Galway reference. It's not a literal piece, but it has the elements of Galway, which I think are essence of the city, which are the river, the bridges, the mills, the cathedral. And the cathedral is a very specific reference because it replaced the jail where Geraldine Plunkett Dillon, Laois Dillon's mother, was taken to when she was arrested in 1921. The next square is a rose, which is a reference to Joe Plunkett, I think the poem that we all know best of his. And it's a second meaning as well, because Geraldine Dillon grew roses in their garden in Dangan. And the last piece on that row is a large vase which belonged to the Countess Plunkett. And as I mentioned, Laois Dillon was my aunt, so this was my great-grandmother, and I actually have that vase, so I was able to reference that in my house. The next section is about childhood, and it has a reference to the sense of the place of childhood. And the place of childhood is both literally Galway, the west of Ireland, but it's also a state of mind. So in that I have 2 kinds of things. One is a wild orchid from Inisheer and a stone wall in which you can see that there's a gap, and that's for Barna. And in the centre I have pieces that are reference to becoming a listener and learning to do things and finding a voice. The next row down is about the habit of work and also about what you need with that, which is I've used a compass as an allegory of this. And I've taken that reference from a painting by Artemisia Gentileschi, which is an allegory of inclination. And she uses the compass as an indicator of natural talent. And it was amazing to find that in the Gentileschi painting, because the mariner's compass had just been invented by Galileo, and she actually knew him. So in that line, there's of the habit of work. I have the clock where you put in the time, the pen, which is something, it's the work of the hands to write as well, and the typewriter, which was actually her typewriter in Olivetti, which she used. I'm on to the last 2 sections, or deal with her life as a person who was involved in the arts generally. She was on the Arts Council and she was involved in Aosdána. And she was also a lover of music, and she was a hospitable person, and she very much passed on the torch to younger writers, both promoting their work internationally and encouraging people and being involved in the Writers' Centre. As well as that, in that section, I have a series of vases. And these are references to translations of her work, which have gone worldwide. Her work is translated into about 18 languages. I've just put a selection there, but I liked the idea, then it refers back to the top 2 pieces, which you'll remember, which were the National Museum and her grandmother's vase, which would refer to Irish and English, which are the languages she wrote in. And the languages at the bottom are the languages of translation, which took her work out. So the overall piece goes from the inspirations for her work, the habit of work, and the way it has gone out into the world.
Thank you, Ruth, for that fascinating insight into the creative process and the meaning behind the images. To conclude today's event, I would like to say some thank yous. Firstly, to Creative Ireland. Without their funding, this project would not have been possible. A special word of thanks to Sharon O'Grady, Arts Officer and Coordinator, for her support and help throughout this project. Eilish Dillon's family. They have been given generously of their time and knowledge, especially in conversations with Ruth, to create this art commission. To Ruth, for presenting us with a wonderful piece of art and for embracing our idea of the Eilish Dillon project with her own creative spirit. Heather Mackey from Ace Media for her PR skills, Theresa and team from Nova Productions, and to Andrew Downs, photographer. My colleagues who have been a great support throughout this project, Bernie Kelly, Emer Donoghue and Patria McWalter, and our colleagues here in Galway City Library, Siobhan and staff. I would like to give a special word of thanks to my joint project coordinator, Jo Vahi. It's her vision and creativity in the planning and executing of this programme that has made Eilish Dillon, Language, Landscape and Legacy such a wonderful process.